Hi everyone! In this video, we'll see how you can integrate your AppCreator application with your existing systems and other third-party services. While developing an application, you might come across scenarios where data needs to be either fetched from or transferred to other third-party applications to streamline your repetitive processes. It is for such cases that we integrate applications. If you remember, in one of our initial videos, we had created an assets form by importing data from a CSV file. This CSV file was imported from the Assets module of Manage Engine ServiceDeskPlus. In a real-time scenario, updating data using the import or export option would be a cumbersome process. Instead, we can integrate these two applications by writing a few lines of code and then run a schedule workflow for periodic update of assets. The steps involved in this process would be: create a connection, configure a schedule workflow, integrate the applications using API and Deluge. Let's first create a connection. Connections, as the name suggests, is used to seamlessly integrate your AppCreator application with other services. To create one, go to the Account Setup. Choose Connections from the Integration section. Click Add Connection, and the available connections are listed here. Choose Manage Engine ServiceDeskPlus, as this contains the Assets module from where we need our data to be fetched. Give a connection name. On the window that pops up, provide the server URL. In our case, the link to access STP. Then, add the auth token generated from the user profile of STP account. Type the name of the authorization account and save. Your connection is created. Once created, this can be used across applications in your AppCreator account. Next, let's configure a schedule workflow. Go to Workflows in the editor and choose Schedules. Click Create Workflow. We need the assets form to be updated daily. Let's specify the date and time here. Give a name and click Create Workflow. Let's add an action. We need to write a Deluge code here. For the ease of demonstration and to save time, we have the code written already. Let's see it line by line. The entire code can be split into two parts. First, make an API call to retrieve data from the Assets module. And second, iterate the data and insert the latest asset information into the assets form. Let's see them one by one. An API call is made when an application needs to interact with another service to give or receive information. API generally has a standardized way with definite formats to send and receive data. An application sends an HTTP request in the defined format to the chosen third-party service's API endpoint. In our case, the Gatepass Management application needs to interact with STP. You can refer to the API document of STP attached in the description box to know more about the format. Since we need to fetch data, we need to use the getHTTP method. This is the API call format for getting information. This is what you get to see in the first part of the code. First, we need to declare variables to hold the values needed for this API call. A variable input data is declared to hold the query parameter or the body of the request. This helps in specifying what data and in what order it needs to be fetched from STP. List info is the key and its corresponding values are written as a list. This asks for the data fetched to start with the index 0, sort them by name in ascending order. The start index refers to the record position from where the data needs to be fetched. 0 refers to the first record in the sequence. Next to that, all the fielding names that are needed from the Assets module of STP are mentioned. The Assets module of STP has fixed unique names for each field name. The attributed names and their details can be referred from the API documentation. Here, we are fetching the asset name, its product type, asset ID, purchase cost, purchase order number, location, manufacturer, allotted user details, asset state, serial number, and barcode. Next, the variable params holds all the values declared in the variable input data in the API specified format. Now, to invoke the API, invoke URL task is used. All the variables that are declared above are attributed accordingly. Here, https://demo.servicedeskplus.com/API/v3/assets is the API endpoint required for accessing the asset information from the Assets module. Get, as mentioned earlier, is the HTTPS method used. Then, The previously declared variable params is assigned as the parameter value. Finally, the connection link name that we created earlier is given. You can access the link name from the connection section. In case you do not create a connection, provide the auth token as header here. The information retrieved through the API call will be stored in the variable response. Now, we are moving to the next part of the code. Whenever the schedule workflow runs, only the latest asset information need to be added to the assets form. To achieve this requirement, here we have used a for each task to start a loop to iterate through each asset received from the assets module that's stored in the response variable. Since the API retrieves information in JSON format, we have used the getJSON function here. Next, we have used a fetch record task and stored all the asset details from the assets form in the variable assetFet. Here, we have matched the asset ID in the assets form with the ID field in the assets module of STP. Since this is a unique value, on each asset iteration, that particular asset's details will be fetched. Then, an if condition is used with the criteria assetFet.count equals 0 to check if the fetch variable is empty. Whenever a new asset is iterated, the assetFet variable won't have any information corresponding to the ID. So the variable remains empty. When this condition is met, we need to insert the details into the assets form. As we have seen in the initial videos, only the assets that are in use will have allotted users' information in the record. We need the user details to be added in such cases and left blank if there's no value in that record. For this, we have fetched user details from the response using getJSON function and stored in the variable user. Next, two variables, username and email, are declared with empty strings respectively. Since allocation date is a date field, we are keeping the value as null. Then again, an if condition is added with the criteria user not equal to null. Here, we have fetched values for email and username respectively from the response variable using the getJSON function. Email ID and name are the respective fielding names used in the assets module. Similarly, we have kept zoho.currentDate as the value for allocation date since we are going to run the schedule workflow daily. Now that all necessary asset information are fetched, we need to add them in the assets form of this Gatepass Management application. For that, we have declared a variable addRec equals, use the insert_into task, and mention the assets form. In the rest of the code, you can see that each field from the assets form is assigned a corresponding value from the assets key received in JSON format. Here, the added user field will store the details of the person who logged in. In the next line, asset name is the fielding name and asset refers to key where all details from assets module are stored. GetJSON function is used since API call retrieves data in JSON format and followed by the link name that carries corresponding value of asset name is mentioned. Similarly, codes are written to insert data into other fields. For employee name, employee email and allocation date, we have used the variables in which we stored the required values. Save the code and let's see. The schedule time is up. The report shows 49 records now. Let's refresh the assets report to check if any data got updated. As you see, new asset information is added to the report and there are a total of 59 records. In this way, you can integrate your AppCreator applications with the services of your choice. Hope this video helped you in gaining an insight on integration setup in AppCreator. Next, we'll see how to visualize overall data using dashboards. Thanks for watching and we'll see you in the next video.